will hand you over to our speaker today, which is Andrew Nicholson.
Okay, thanks, Lucy. Okay, yes, my name is Andrew Nicholson. I'm currently based over at the County Courts Money Claims Centre, or the Salford Business Centre. Now, I'm going to talk today about my experiences with dyspraxia, dyslexia, colour blindness, partial eyesight and diabetes, because certainly when you're dealing with a mouthful like that, it changes your perspective in life. Because in my case, all this didn't happen all at once. It was built up over time, really. Now, first of all, I was chatting to one of my friend's mums, a few years ago now. This was a good point to start about this, really, because I remember her being absolutely shocked when I told her about all these conditions I suffer from, or been diagnosed from over the years. And I could clearly remember her saying to me at the time, "How do you cope with all these conditions in your life?" And it was just, I just do really, because I think when you're suffering from many sort of conditions that cause you to impact on your life, you either accept it and learn to work your way around it, or it's just a case of it drives you down. And it's worth it backtracking really in this, because certainly in the case of my eyesight, because I can only see about 5% vision on my right eye, and I was born that way, and that's come from my mum, because mum's got something similar on the left eye. And colour blindness was also diagnosed very, very, very quickly on, but certainly before I got to school itself. And it was interesting really, because that is so, both of them alone caused me quite major issues. And back in school when I grew up in the 1980s, of course, now dyslexia and dyspraxia, that came much, much later on. When I went to university when I was 27 in 1998, and it wasn't picked up on the time at primary school and secondary school, just because it wasn't at the time really diagnosed and understood. Now, because of that, it has to be said, school wasn't a particularly happy time for me. And I will be honest with that. I'll admit, when I left there in 1988, I left there with next to no qualifications. I'm frequently made to feel stupid whenever I was struggling with certain topics. You can work it out yourself. Now, by the time I got to 21, it became apparent to get a better job, I was going to have to go back and try and reset my qualifications so I can move my life forward. Now, this itself was hard work. It has to be said, because over 6 years, I was often doing 2 or 3 evening classes a week after work. First of all, resitting on my GCSEs with a few additional qualifications. And then I went on to doing A-levels and IT and sitting guilds, while then still working in my day job. It was during English language A-level, after getting good marks in my English language GCSE the year before, that I remember a lecturer in the evening classes expressing concerns. I can directly remember her telling me she thought I suffered from either dyspraxia or dyslexia. Whatever reason, I can't remember why now. This wasn't picked up on at the time I joined that, but it was confirmed 2 years later when I was doing my BA Joint Honours in Creative Writing and Theatre Studies at university. One of my lecturers, after seeing me struggle for at least 3 lessons in theatre studies in recreating improvised theatre. Now, the improvised theatre itself was done by something very similar to a company called Deviate, which is like improvised physical theatre, and have you rolling around the floor in coordination with each other. And it didn't quite go to plan, because I was coming out of the lessons we were doing and getting taught this process of theatre, covered in bruises and cuts and bangs. Now, because of that, I was then referred for an assessment to an occupational therapist, where I was told the news I wasn't just dyslexic, but I also suffered from dyspraxia, which was linked to my balance and all the frequent accents that had been happening, which was compounded because of my eyesight. Now, the university, it has to be said here, was great, because they put me in touch with my local authority, who arranged for me to get a new PC with specially adapted over equipment, which was back in those days very, very rare. Some of the stuff they were giving me, like it was like they used to have like special equipment set up on a laptop to read documents back to me. They had it all set up to do my colour blindness, and it's all kinds of things like that, and specialised spell checkers, computerised voices reading things back to me. Now, with this help, and also the fact they also give me an extra teaching as well, I managed to get a 2-2 in my degree. but I probably had to work twice as hard as some of the other students to actually get that grade. It was hard work, that's for sure. Now, I think my determination came from that really, and made me realise, despite the above, I wasn't prepared to go back to the way my life was before university. Now, diabetes itself raised its head a few years after that when I turned 39. But this time I got into writing poetry professionally, despite needing help on the editing side of the poetry itself. And I'd produced my first full-length book, really, Return to Kemptown in 2010. I'd also performed at dozens of poetry events up and down the United Kingdom, and toured Ireland twice as well with 2 different bands, and then was diagnosed with diabetes after collapsing at work the night after doing a concert. Now, I was honest with myself here, I was half expecting to get this when I was older, because my father got it in his early 60s, some years before, and I was also aware of my mother's father also contracting it before he died, but not at 39, no way. Now, as soon as this happened, it became apparent, and it's a common myth this with diabetes sometimes. I've known people, when I've done diabetes meetings, told me when they got diabetic, they thought it was the end of their life. I knew myself straight away then it wasn't, but I need to try and work out how I would approach things next. Because I'd had challenges already with dyspraxia, dyslexia, and all the other things I've told you about. But I needed to look at myself how I was going to approach my life next. Now, working at the Ministry of Justice since the year afterwards, 2012, has produced its own set of challenges, mostly learning my limitations, which is it's an ongoing process. You're diabetic, what I can and cannot do, and adjusting to it as I've done all the other times over the years, really. Now, the past 8 years living with diabetes in the workplace has involved changing my lifestyle in and out of work, and making sure I pace myself up everything I do, and not being afraid to ask for help, or a colleague or manager to double check a report or the email I was working on. Now, obviously, we're in lockdown at the moment still, where the coronavirus situation is in the world, and I've been working from home now for 6 months, like probably lots of people have, and that itself is a challenge itself. Like you think really when you're working in an office, you can, if I had a problem, I'd go to one of the managers or get help of somebody else. I've learned to adapt now again to asking for help remotely all the time, and bringing the manager up on Skype, dropping a quick message or arranging a call to a major concern. It's been an ongoing process trying to reevaluate and change how your life goes, particularly in the situation we're in now. When I first started at the Ministry of Justice in 2012, it was arranged right from the beginning. A DSO would report what I needed to help get my work done at the right level. And this involved like a special adapted PC, the colouring and changing on the codes on the laptop, PC itself, the laptop, to make sure I didn't get overtired, and it's been done very monotone on purpose. And then it was like they eventually had to look at what work I could do at a certain level, and then the speed of it, and it's everything adapted on it. That's why now it is. Also, on top of that, they then arranged for something called a disability passport, was next set up, which has followed me through each team I've actually worked on throughout my time at the CCMCC, and then whoever's been the manager, because it's the way our office is, it moves all the time, it's constantly evolving and changing. Also, with support from managers, and also sheer plain stubbornness, which you'll get used to me if you know me, I've gathered 2 major qualifications through work, a level 2 and level 3 in operational delivery, which I did during the work time, and also plenty of time working at home as well. And that both of those 2 were done over like 1 year each, and each one of them was like involved in having the second one, particularly 9 exams I had to sit. And I can remember going to doing the first exam when the manager moderated me in the background, and all she heard was swearing coming at some of the questions. I remember it well, that one, but it didn't stop me. I was a bit shocked how difficult some of the questions were, but I thought I'm going to do this. And that's why I kept doing it. That's what you do, is like I've maintained my life by operating a well-balanced and organised workload. Like I've bought out, this, bear in mind, this is through working full time as well. I've bought out 3 further full-length poetry books. I run my own award-nominated writer poetry podcast, Spoken Label, and I'm involved in what my partner runs as well, good reading and beverages book reviews. I also write a weekly column on the arts for the Sunday Tribune, which is a quite respected online newspaper. And I also do ambient music under the name of Ocean in the Bottle, which is part of the title for this, really, because Ocean in the Bottle really was it started off a deep meditational music for myself, because I had a spell when I came out of a long-term relationship about 5 years ago, and I was having trouble sleeping, just stress-based, and I used that to help me calm myself down then, so I can move on to the next stage of my life. Well, to conclude, really, you can see I'm a busy man, but I've simply not given up, no matter what life's thrown at me. And no doubt if I have other health problems or something else changes in my life, I'm the sort of person where I'll adapt and way around it. I'll work on it and I'll look for solutions all the time. And that's what I do. I work a lot of the time. If something I can't do, I'll go and ask for help. Or if with them, I'll often work on the problem with people and we'll get around it, make it a success. It's just me. I don't give up. That's me done.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew. So I got a bit of there. So anybody who's online, feel free